Hare Krishna. So one of the biggest problems that yoga points out to tell us, look, this is like the worst thing you're doing, is when your mind keeps slipping away to the future, when you leave the here and now. So in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Yoga Sutras, you have these stern warnings about this problem of drifting your mind to the future. And as soon as you do that, as soon as your mind drifts to the future, yearning for some sort of situation in the future, some job you want, something you want to buy, some place you want to be, somebody's reaction you're expecting it. Whenever your mind drifts to the future in expectation of some external situation happening, then you start suffering anxiety, you leave the here and now, you're just like you've lost touch with reality, yoga is saying. And there's an interesting sutra in the Yoga Sutras where Patanjali explains why your mind slips to the future. And it's in Sutra 2.7, Chapter 2, Sutra 7, where he says, fantasizing about the future is born of attachment to superficial pleasure. And that really goes to the core of it. It's interesting that it's right there in the Yoga Sutras, right? So when you're attached to superficial pleasures which have to do from here outwards, naturally you start thinking, okay, what kind of situation in the material world will give me that pleasure? And then your mind drifts to the future and you fantasize, oh yeah, if I had this thing, if I had that money, that much fame, and this person next to me, and if I was doing that in this place, and driving this car in that boat, then I would be happy. And of course, this is the core of what I explained in the 3T path, which I call the fantasy paradigm. This is the whole thing we have to come over. This is the core issue we have to try to, deal with in our lives, because we keep doing that and it doesn't work. It doesn't work because as soon as your mind goes to the future, all these negative emotions start coming up. You just can't help it. It's like, it's like the law of gravity. It's unavoidable. As soon as you're fantasizing about some future situation, immediately you're unsatisfied with your life right now. Immediately you start feeling frustrated with your life now. If anything happens to prevent you from getting that little fantasy you're creating, you get angry. When somebody else gets it, you get envious, and it just goes on like that, just anger and frustration and envy and anxiety and fear. Just, everything sort of takes off from there just because your mind is, drifting to the future, expecting something to happen. And the worst thing is, when it actually happens, it doesn't really do the trick. There's plenty of people, whatever fantasy you have of like having this house and that boat and this car and this woman, that guy, this body and that much fame and so many followers, whatever fantasy you're having now, somebody has it. And if you could talk to that person, they will tell you, look, it didn't really do it for me. I'm still like anxious about all these other things now. I'm still wanting all these other things to happen. So it never works. And you've had this experience. It's like a great question. What happens when you finally get that thing you've always wanted? What happens? What happens is not much. Not much at all. And then you're caught like, oh, now what? Oh, maybe I should just desire something else. And then you kind of go back because that's the only thing you know. Oh yeah, I should just desire something else now. And then you keep desiring other things, but meanwhile you're feeling very empty and frustrated inside and not realized, and it doesn't work. So yoga is, this big call from yoga is like, no. You have to focus inside, look inside, start focusing on things which really will do it for you right here and now. Because you have to be satisfied with life right here and now. If you're not totally satisfied right now, you have to change stuff, not outside, but inside. That's where you have to change stuff, inside. So you start focusing on living your essence, what we call living your dharma. You have to start focusing on your devotion, your connection. You have to start focusing on things which are within you and not outside of you. So that's an interesting sutra where Patanjali directly points out the root of that problem of wanting to be in the future. Hare Krishna.